Hi, I'm Abe Antonucci with NextHome Destination. Today I'm going to interview one of my friends and previous coworkers, Jeremy Tankink. He's with the Bozeman Police Department, City of Bozeman, and our newest school resource officer.
Yep.
So, Jeremy, I guess let's get it started. How long have you been in law enforcement?
Going on about 12 and a half years now.
Okay.
So quite a while.
And what got you started in law enforcement? I know you were in a different field, right?
Yeah, I worked in retail for quite a few years and decided I've always kind of had an interest in law enforcement and finally just was able to make it happen. And like I said, always being an interest, I just a lot of times didn't know how to get into it. And then once I started doing a little bit of research and finally got into it and started applying for it, I finally got it. I was lucky enough to get it.
Did you have any position you wanted to be when you started out? You're like, I want to be a SWAT guy, I want to be a patrol. Like,
you know, most people think that, like, I think that's like the general idea. People think, oh, I want to be SWAT right when I get in there. And I always, what intrigued me was the investigation. So when I first got in, I thought I'd be a detective one day and work that route. And I was in patrol and I loved patrol and I loved all the functions of it and how it was different every day. And so I stuck with that for quite a few years.
So your newest position is school resource officer. And then what is a school resource officer and what is your role in that field?
Well, there's a lot. Actually, that's a huge question, actually. So it basically is an officer that is designated just for certain schools. There's certain ones for each schools in town. And it's not just the law enforcement aspect in the school. That is a huge part of it. But we also work with counselors and we work with the school staff. And if there's issues within the school, we can help with that on the law enforcement side. But we're also a support mechanism for the kids as well. And so basically, we kind of bridge the gap between what might be kids that only see marked patrol units outside. We want to give them, they're kind of like maybe a scary uniform or something like that. We want to be able to show them that, hey, police officers come in all different uniforms. We're all doing the same thing. We're all there to help. And I think it just helps them get kind of baby steps up to maybe that unfortunate, contact with a law enforcement officer down the road, whether it be for them or somebody else. If they see that, they're not so, I guess, scared.
Do you have a teaching role in schools as well? Do you teach any classes? Or?
Yeah, we don't. We don't necessarily take over any types of classes, but we do work with like health classes to teach certain topics, and it's all grade level dependent. When you get to the younger class, like kindergarten through maybe third or fourth, it's not so much a teaching thing, and mostly just kind of building some relationships with the kids and being there for them. And kind of a support mechanism. Once they get into like fifth grade and higher up, then you take a little more active role into helping teach some of the classes and putting out some information, whatever's relevant to that age range.
To become a SRO, did you need special training, or was it a class you had to go to?
Yes and yes. Yeah, there's actually a school for it that you go to, and then once you're done with that, a lot of it is just working with your school staff. I have 5 schools that I work with, and so each one is a little bit different on what their needs are for that school. So it's kind of like a trial by fire. Like, let's see how it is in this school. What are their needs? Might be different from this school, and then you just kind of work with each one on what they need for each specific school, and then a lot of it is just learning on the go. And so I'd love to say, I've got it down, but I've been in it for about going on 2 months now, and I still feel like I'm way behind the curve. So
do you handle like the investigation sides too? And like, if you do, what kind of typical investigation might you see or stuff?
Yeah, we do right now. So the schools I'm responsible for are a middle school and 4 grade schools. And so the law enforcement aspect of it is a little bit less in those younger grades. Thankfully, you don't have as many kids getting into that type of legal trouble. More things like truancy and things like that would be the major issues there. And so I guess my job would be more of a kind of a support, more so than the law enforcement aspect of it. I'm there in case it's needed, but it's more talking to the kids, being an ear they can talk to if they need that. And then sometimes if you have to talk to parents and things like that, I can fill that role as well.
Okay. Now, as part of your training, did you learn special techniques on how to talk to kids, or?
Yeah, that's part of it. A lot of it helps being a parent myself,
Right.
so I've got a little firsthand knowledge there as well. But a lot of it is, it's definitely different from patrol. There's definitely a patrol way of dealing with situations, and I think you really have to shift gears and have it a lot different approach and different speed when you're dealing with children, and rightfully so.
Dealing with children is probably easier than sometimes dealing with parents. Can you talk to that, or has that been a challenge at all?
Boy, that's a case-by-case dependent one on that one. Sometimes the hope is that everybody's on the same board. Children, you can make a difference with the kids, I think, at a certain level, but I think you definitely need the parent support on the whole thing, in my opinion, because you can do only so much through the school, and the teachers can only do so much through the school. But I think as long as the parents are on board and continuing that support at home, I think you have greater return on that.
Changing gears a little bit, are you seeing any sort of trends or things that were new to you that existed in schools that, we would want our audience to know, to kind of nip in the bud, or to stop, or things to look for?
One of the biggest trends that we're seeing in the upper classes is the vaping. And that's becoming a really big issue. And I know myself, and I know a lot of other people are probably keeping track, or at least seeing in the news all the new illnesses and things like that. And that would be a concern. I think a lot of it is education on that, is getting parents involved and the kids as well, because I think a lot of kids think it's safe. And I think a lot of kids think that, it's not a cigarette, or I've read that it's safer, or I read that it's just it's okay, it's not as bad. And I think the statistics will probably speak for themselves, in the sense of that a lot of people are getting sick and going to the hospital because of this. So that, unfortunately, is a trend that we're seeing, not only in the high schools, but starting to trickle into the middle schools as well. So I think education and really working with not only the school, but parents and the kids as well, like I said, to educate them, hopefully we'll nip that before it becomes like a lifelong habit down the road.
So is the vape product a nicotine product, and then is that then by statute illegal to minors?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So all the schools are tobacco free anyway, and I know that was a kind of a weird question that came up when the vaping came out. Is this technically tobacco? Is it, where does it fall? It's still in that code. It's still illegal in the schools. So kids that are caught with it can be cited for it criminally. More importantly, it's banned from the school, and sometimes the repercussions are even bigger through the schools if they're caught with it in doing it on school grounds.
And do you see that as like a gateway, and if so, to other things, or?
It could be. I mean, it definitely could. I think just like smoking is, could be a gateway to, you'd have to look at the statistics on there. But I think if you're willing to start one type of, addictive drug, I think that's always has a potential to start the next one up or try something new after that.
What do you think parents should know? Are there things they should look for? Because I've heard these vaping devices can be camouflaged. Is that right? Or what do they look like?
Yeah, I've seen vaping tools that look like hard drive or thumb drives that go into computers. I've seen watches that are vape.
Really?
Yeah, and I would tell every parent out there is do their research. Because I can tell you what to look for, and then the minute I tell you that, it's too old. It's old information, and so I really think parents need to do their research on that. Just as like we do as police officers have to. I'm always looking at that type of stuff to see what's the new trend going to be.
Right.
What is that, and then what do I look for? And like I said, once you read it, it's almost dated already, but at least it gives you at least a foundation to look at, work with.
Are there any other safety concerns or stuff you're seeing inside the schools or outside the schools, like crosswalks or speed limits? I mean, there are other suggestions maybe.
They're always, it's always a constant issue with traffic safety, and I think that's something that, every school has crosswalks. They have well marked out areas for kids to safely cross the street, and I think I would ask the public to do is just keep an eye on that and know where your schools are, and if your route takes you through a school, it's okay to slow down. Right. We do the best we can as officers, maybe not myself personally, but patrol officers, get requests all the time to run traffic through schools, and you'll see them all the time throughout town, but there's only so much that they can do, and I would just really want people to keep an eye on the school zones, and it's slow they want you slow. They're there for a reason, and it's obviously in the end, it's for child safety. It's for everybody's safety in there. So, outside of the schools, that's tough to say. Inside the schools, I say it's just kind of basically what we've done is we've gotten a lot better as school resource officers, from what I hear, and the limited experience I have on there is doing a lot of safety checks and going through a checklist with the school on what what are the expectations of the school,
right.
What are their thoughts, what can we as law enforcement, looking at it from an outside point of view, to make the school safer. And I think the big key is communicating with the school on what are two expectations, how are they going to work together to make a functioning school, because in the end it's still school. You can't make it a fort,
right.
But at the same time, I think there are some things that every school can do to improve the safety of the kids. And like I said, it's the kids' safety in the end, and so that's what we all need to be focused on.
So we have one of the biggest high schools in the state right now, like Bozeman High School.
Mm-hmm.
We're gearing up, we're ramping up for high school number 2.
Yeah.
Has there been assignments made yet, or kind of
not yet? We're
plans, or kind of figured out?
Yeah, they already have individual, or they're trying to get people hired for that. I can't vouch for the school side of it, of course, but definitely on the police side, we already looking to put staff in there as well and get them up to speed. And it's a full-time job. There's 2 SROs in the high school, and that's some days not even enough.
Right.
And so I think it's just trying to get it, adequately staffed to cover that. And then it's just going to be, getting a new grade school in town has been staffing issue. We've done that in the past, and we've dealt with that, and we've done that when they built Chief Joseph up there separately. And so I think this is going to be another new opportunity to learn something new, because we have not had to do ever in a new high school in town, and so that's going to fall on. It's going to be a learning experience, I would imagine, and I think you need the manpower to do it. So.
And patrol officers also respond to a school-related event.
Absolutely.
I'm assuming.
Yeah. Anytime that there's if there's any type of emergency, obviously patrol would be the first one to respond to any of the schools, and they'd get there sometimes on. Fortunately, a lot quicker than I would. I might be in a meeting at a different school, where the case might be. I would hear about it and eventually go over there to help out, because I'm a familiar face. So we would really be leaning on them in the beginnings too, to be able to bounce back and forth in the SRO's absence at that point.
I'm excited for it. I'm going to have a freshman there, so
it
should be.
Yeah, it'll be very exciting to see how that works.
I don't know, 2024 or whatever it's.
I grew up in a town with 2 high schools, so that's nothing new to me. So I was kind of excited to see how that works. I have one in high school right now, and he'll be staying at the old school. But it'll be exciting to see how this plays out with the rivalry and things like that. It's stuff I just took for granted growing up.
Right. That's true. Are there any other things you'd like the community to know about the SRO, or?
It's just a busy job. We try to get in the schools as much as possible, and we definitely are. It's focused on kids, and I can't say that enough. And I think that, if you see SROs in the school, it doesn't mean that there's an emergency necessarily. It doesn't need to be a panicky situation. It just has. We might be talking to a principal. We might be visiting. I spent all last week visiting kindergarten classes, and so just telling them about police and having them, answer questions that they had. And so just to let you know that we are in the schools, and we're in the schools regularly, and we're doing our best to make that presence known, and not only to let everybody else outside the school know, but to let the kids know that, hey, we're friendly people, we're just normal people as well, and we want to help you guys, and we'll be there on a consistent basis from here on out.
So if a parent has a question or a concern and they want to talk to an SRO, what's the best way? Should they call 911? Should it be dispatch, personal cell, email?
Probably
what's the best way to
what I would suggest, probably the easiest way would be just for tracking purposes, to keep track of which school I'm talking about, because I'd love to say I know every kid's name individually, but that's hard to do. And so what I would say is whatever school you're at, whatever school your kid is at, talk to that principal and say, I'm interested in contacting the SRO, and then they would supply either probably my email to set up a time. That's probably the easiest way. Unfortunately, I'm tied to my phone now, not a radio like I was in patrol. Right. And so they would be able to forward that information to me, and I would be able to contact the parent. That's probably the best way.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you for your time, Jeremy. It's been super informative. I used to be in this role, and I've already learned quite a bit. And so,
No, it's good talking to you again.
Great. Thank you so much, Jeremy.
It's good seeing you.
And I'm Abe Antonucci with NextHome Destination, and stay tuned for our next episode when we interview someone new in the community. Thank you.